79% of American millionaires never inherited a dollar. No trust fund, no lucky break, no family business waiting for them. Just habits, repeated for a couple decades without anyone watching. Quick note, not financial advice, just patterns that show up again and again once you actually look for them. And it's not that this group is smarter or luckier or started with some advantage the rest of us didn't get. 8 out of 10 of them came from families at or below middle income. Almost none of them started with an upper income cushion behind them. What they had instead was a short list of habits, repeated so consistently that they stopped being decisions and just became the way money moved through their lives by default. Here's the first one, and it's almost boring. They pay themselves before they pay anything else. The retirement contribution or the savings transfer happens the same day the paycheck lands, before rent, before groceries, before anything gets a chance to eat that money first. It's not willpower, it's just moved to the front of the line automatically, so willpower never has to show up. Picture the alternative for a second, because most people are living it without noticing. Paycheck lands, bills get paid, whatever's left at the end of the month is what we'll save. Most months, there's nothing left by the time you get there. It's not that the intention was missing, it's that saving was scheduled last, competing against everything else that had already claimed a seat. Second, they don't try to time anything. No waiting for the right moment to invest, no pulling money out because the news looked scary that week. Same amount, same schedule, every month, market up or down. It's not exciting. It's also almost exactly what the data on long-term investing consistently rewards. And the boring part is the entire point. Everyone else is checking the headlines, half convinced this is the week everything falls apart, waiting for a signal that never actually arrives clearly enough to act on. This group already automated the decision years ago, so the headline doesn't even reach the part of their life where money moves. The investing happened before the panic had a chance to. Third, they keep living like they haven't made it yet, even once they clearly have. The car is older than you'd guess. The house is smaller than the income would justify. Not because they can't afford better, because they noticed a long time ago that upgrading everything the moment income rises is the fastest way to still feel broke at any salary. You've probably met someone like this without realizing it. The co-worker with the 10-year-old sedan who turns out to have a stronger balance sheet than half the office driving something newer on a lease. Nobody guesses right about who actually has money because the people who have it stopped advertising it a long time ago. Fourth, they watch net worth, not income. A raise means almost nothing to them by itself. What matters is whether the gap between what comes in and what goes out actually widened. Two people can earn the same salary for a decade and end up in completely different places, and income was never the variable that explained it. Ask most people what they earn and they'll tell you instantly. Ask what they're actually worth once debt is subtracted out, and there's a pause because it's not a number most people track at all. This group checks that number the way other people check their phone. Not obsessively, just regularly enough that it never gets to be a surprise. Fifth, they don't leave free money on the table. In one of the largest studies ever done on this, 8 out of 10 millionaires said their employer 401k was a key part of how they built their wealth. Not because it's flashy, because a company match is one of the only guaranteed returns in personal finance, and skipping it is functionally the same as declining part of your own paycheck. Somewhere right now, someone's contributing just enough to get under the match threshold, planning to increase it later once things feel more stable. Later has a way of never quite arriving. The people who actually built wealth this way mostly just set the number once, at the full match, and stopped renegotiating with themselves about it every few months. Sixth, they treat consumer debt like a fire alarm, not background noise. Not no debt ever, a mortgage or a reasonable car loan doesn't scare this group. But a credit card balance carried month to month gets handled fast on purpose before it quietly turns into years of interest nobody budgeted for. The alarm doesn't get snoozed for months at a time here. A balance shows up. It gets a plan within that same billing cycle, not next month when things calm down. Most debt spirals aren't one bad decision. They're one small balance that got permission to sit there quietly for a year while nobody looked directly at it. Seventh, they almost never talk about money the way you'd expect. No flexing, no dropping the account balance into conversation. If anything, they undersell it. The people loudest about how well they're doing financially and the people actually doing well financially turn out, more often than not, to be two different groups entirely. The vacation photos, the new car reveal, the constant soft mentions of the upgrade. That's a broadcast, and broadcasts cost money to produce. The people quietly doing well tend to talk about money the way they talk about their medical history. Honestly, if you ask directly, and not 1 second before that. Eighth, they keep a real cushion, not a hopeful one. Right now, close to a quarter of American adults have no emergency savings at all, and just over half don't have enough set aside to cover a surprise $1,000 expense. This group built the opposite on purpose, enough set aside that one bad month doesn't turn into one bad year. Picture the same car repair happening to two different households. In one, it's a 5-minute transfer from savings, and the week continues like nothing happened. In the other, it's a credit card swipe, a new minimum payment, and the beginning of a balance that might still be around 18 months later. Same repair bill, completely different aftermath decided months earlier by a decision nobody remembers making. Ninth, they actually look at their numbers on a schedule, instead of avoiding the app for 3 weeks because checking feels stressful. Once a month, sometimes more, they sit down and look at what's actually happening, not what they assume is happening. Avoidance feels like relief in the moment. It's just relief that gets paid back later with interest. Most people know exactly what it feels like to not open that one app for a while, half convinced that not looking somehow keeps the number from getting worse. It doesn't. The number does whatever it's going to do either way. The only thing avoidance actually protects is the moment of finding out. And that moment always arrives eventually, usually at the worst possible time to be surprised by it. 10th, they don't put everything on one bet. In that same Millionaire study, not a single person listed single stock investing as a major factor in how they built their wealth. It didn't even crack the top 3 reasons they gave. Not one employer's shares, not the assumption that a single, sure thing will carry the whole plan. There's always a coworker with a story about the one stock that changed everything, and it's a great story right up until the year it doesn't work out that way for someone else who tried to copy it. Diversification doesn't make for a great story at a dinner party. It just means no single bad week can undo a decade of decisions. 11th, they keep learning about money long after they'd have an excuse to stop. Books, articles, the occasional deep dive into how something actually works, even after there's plenty in the account already. Curiosity about money doesn't stop being useful just because there's more of it. If anything, more money makes bad decisions more expensive, not less. It's tempting to assume the learning stops once the number gets big enough, that at some point you've arrived and can stop paying attention. The people who actually stay ahead treat it the opposite way. The bigger the number gets, the more expensive an uninformed decision becomes, so the attention never really gets to switch off. 12th, and this might be the real one underneath all the others, they think in decades. A bad month doesn't wreck the plan because the plan was never built around any single month holding up on its own. A stretch of paycheck-to-paycheck living, even at 6 figures, and right now just over 6 in 10 households earning $100,000 to $150,000 report exactly that, doesn't define the trajectory if the habits underneath it are still intact. A rough year happens to almost everyone at some point. A layoff, a medical bill, a move that costs more than expected. The difference isn't that this group avoids rough years, it's that a rough year doesn't get treated as proof the whole plan failed. It gets treated as one bad chapter in a book that's still got a lot of pages left, and the habits keep running quietly underneath it the entire time. None of these 12 are secret. None of them require a special account, a connection, or a head start nobody else got. That's kind of the uncomfortable part. If the actual formula were complicated, it would almost be a relief, something you could blame on not having access to it. It isn't complicated. It's mostly just consistency, applied for longer than feels reasonable, by people who mostly weren't talking about it while they did it. Remember that 79% figure from the start. No inheritance, no head start, just habits stacked for years. It's easy to hear a stat like that and assume it's motivational filler. It isn't. It's the actual explanation. 8 out of 10 of them didn't get a shortcut. They got the same starting line as everyone else and just didn't stop walking. The gap between knowing this and doing this is where almost everyone actually gets stuck, not the information itself. You already knew most of these 12 before this video started. The only real question is which ones are just facts, and which ones are actually running in the background of your life every single month, quietly doing the work while you're thinking about something else entirely. None of these 12 happen overnight, and nobody watching from the outside sees the version where it clicks. It just quietly compounds, month after unremarkable month, until one day the gap between where you started and where you are has gotten large enough that people start assuming you had some kind of head start. You didn't. You just kept doing the boring thing after everyone else had already stopped. If this is the kind of thing you think about, stick around. That's basically what this channel is. And before you go, which one of these 12 are you already doing and which one is next? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.